Okay, kia ora tātou, kia ora. Welcome to this first webinar. This webinar is about affordable housing, and really privileged to have two guest speakers with us today. My name is Wiramu Grace. I run the Eco Māori Facebook page website, and today we've got Grant Stephen, who is a very well-known earth builder, a builder with of earth. And also Jared, who's lives on whānau land in a tiny house with his whānau, and a permaculture exponent, a parakore representative. And so I'm really glad to have you two both here today, and thank you very much for joining us. If you'd like to do a short introduction of yourselves, and we'll start with you, Grant, and then you, Jared, and after that we'll get into some kōrero. Nō reira, tēnā tātou, kia ora, Grant.
Yeah, kia ora, Wiramu, and kia ora everybody that's watching this webinar. Yeah, I'm a light earth builder. Have been playing around with natural. That's part of the whole field of natural building. We don't try to use the word earth building. It's natural building. Use natural materials. It's not just about the clay. So I've been teaching this for 12 years now, mainly working in rural Māori communities. I've had literally contact with many thousands of people, and done a lot of small scale projects, and have built up a lot of experience with these materials and how to work with them. And so that's that's what I'm really about, is just the nuts and bolts about how to build houses from natural materials. That's my strength.
Kia ora wā te koe. And kia koe, Jared.
O tēnā tātou katoa, huhi mai nei tēnei wā, te whakarono I nā kōrero pāna ki te kotahi tana o nā whare, nā noho ana, tutahi he mihi nui kia koe Wiramu, kua whakariti tēnei, kia koe hoki Grant, he rana tira koe, I ruti tō momo mahi. Ai, nā reira, koe tēnei, ko Jared Hikita hau. Ko kai te noho, tēnei nono I runi te hokianga, no te waimana hau, no te whuku o te ika, no tūhoi. Tēnā tātou. Yeah, so yeah, Jared, for about 3 years now. 3 years ago, we kind of made the decision to build a tiny house on a trailer. And it sort of quickly turned into something much bigger than just a tiny house on a trailer. We ended up basically creating a papakainga, starting from just a paddock. And we're still in the process of creating that. And it's been an awesome journey. And I mean, aside from that, I've sort of been involved for a while now with a lot of environmental kaupapa. And sort of more and more sort of coming to the understanding that, it's fundamental that the prosperity of humanity depends on the vitality of our natural world, of Papa Tuanuku of Rangi Nui. And I sort of see my responsibility to embrace that and express that in the way we live our lives, so that all the practices and activities we undertake on our place, within our home, outside of our home at mahi, are actually regenerating of the environment. Because for a long time there's been a lot of human-induced degradation of our planet, of Papa Tuanuku, and sort of getting to the point where we're really starting to feel those consequences. But yeah, I'll just park it there anyway so we can carry on with our kōrero. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora wā te koe. Ai, ka tika o kōrero. And that's why we're running this webinar, and this series of webinars is to highlight and highlight some of the skills and the things needed that, components needed that we need to be able to go onto land, and building houses is one of them, but it's only one part of a lot of things that we need if we are to live communally, if we are to be able to support each other in different ways, and live healthy, prosperous lives, and I think the mainstream example has been failing us, and we can see that in a lot of the statistics that are out there for Māori in particular. But anyway, we're going to go firstly to you, Jared, and we're going to talk a little bit about the process of you building your tiny house and the advantages that has had for you. So the first question I've got is, why did you choose the tiny house in particular? As a means to be able to go into more affordable housing, I suppose.
Yeah, well, to answer the question, why did we get into this? There's many reasons. And if I can sort of boil those down to some main themes, I think probably one of the most prominent things is reclaiming some rangatiratanga over our lives and the way that we raised our children, the way that we connect with the taia, with the whenua, growing food, and building a tiny house on a trailer to me at the time seemed like the fastest way to get us towards reclaiming that sense of tino rangatiratanga, ownership over our decisions, our time, owning our time, and just living a life that was less impactful, treading a bit more lightly. So it's just at the time it was, and I think probably still is was the quickest way for us to start heading towards that. Now some of the nitty gritty of why, like for instance, a tiny house on a trailer is so much more affordable than a conventional home. You could pay 10 times less quite easily for a tiny house on a trailer, especially if you're self-building. If you're self-building it, then you can do it for really cheap. Another reason is building a tiny house on top of a trailer allows you to avoid the pains of going through building code and consent, and the costs that come with that. And I think they have a place in the world and in our country. Building code and building consent, make sure our buildings are built strong, and but they can be a very big hindrance for a lot of people, and can take up a lot of finance, slow you down, that sort of thing. The great thing about building a house on wheels is that it's mobile, and that is a very liberating aspect to be able to move your house. So if you've got your tiny house on a trailer, if say in a few years from that time you might come across some land, you might purchase it, or maybe you'll come up with some kind of arrangement with a whānau or a farm to stay on the land, and you can move onto it instantly. So it's that ability to move instantaneously and take your dwelling with you, so that you're not having to go through that setup period and the labor and the cost that comes with that. So very liberating. And if in the future we needed to sell it, then the whole of New Zealand is our market, because I could literally tow it from up here in Te Hiku all the way down to Bluff if we needed to. So the market for selling a house is much broader, and also the market for us to where we want to move to, if that is a thing for us, is so much more broad, and it just gives so much more options. I think another good thing about tiny house on a trailer is that it's on a small scale, so it's a lot more feasible, less intimidating to take on compared to like a 200 square meter house or whatever. And just the last couple of things are skills that I've learned through the process of building a tiny house on a trailer. So before I got into this, I had no formal building experience. I'd sort of had a career in the arts and education and youth work and that sort of thing. And so, I mean, I'd seen so many other people do it that gave me confidence that sure, I could do it too. And those are skills that are beneficial for you for the rest of your life. They'll always feed back to you, because there's skills that you can apply all the time. Building stuff, it's such a beautiful skill, beautiful craft to be able to have. So I mean, that kind of covers anyway why and some of the advantages.
What's a I'm curious because I do live in a tiny house myself, and I know these things have changed for myself, and a lot of those things have been around the way I think. I'm not sure if that has been an experience for you, in how you think about resources or how things have changed for you in terms of your thinking, and that could include how you relate, your relationships. So what's that sort of been like for you, going into a tiny house situation?
Yeah, I think it has had an impact on the way that I think and the way that I live. Mainly in that, your sort of the footprint of your house is reduced down to such a small space that you really become conscious of what you have in that house. You just don't have the ability to buy lots of stuff to then bring it in and just have it like hanging out there, not doing much. So it means that the stuff you do have, you're a bit more intentional about it being really useful, being of quality. And I think in terms of relationships, it definitely brings you closer to people, which can be a challenge at times, but it also can be a good thing. And it also brings you closer to the taiao, closer to nature, because you kind of are forced outside when you need some space. And the beauty of tiny house is that, it's just because you build a tiny house doesn't mean that's it forever. People think, oh, what's going to happen when you have kids? It's like, I'll just build a small 10 square meter shack or something like that. You can always expand. It's not the end, and you're not stuck with it forever, no matter how big your whānau gets. And yeah, just I guess my environmental conscience has just grown and grown over this period of building our house, and it's due to a number of reasons. And I think a tiny house on a trailer is great. It's not the be all and the end all for every single person on this planet. There's plenty of other good options, and I love what Grant does in his earth building. I hope to build an earth house one day, right where our tiny house is. And yeah, so it's just one option. And I think one of the beautiful things about a tiny house on a trailer is it's like the step on the property ladder that happens before a big house. It's like it's one step down where, if you looked around for the cheapest houses possible in New Zealand, you might be sitting around the 100,000, 200,000 plus mark. But this is like a step before that, and a bit more affordable.
True that. In terms of the opportunities and other things that have opened up for you after going into a tiny house, and
I think going on this journey has been something that has opened up a lot of doors. People are really interested in tiny houses at the moment, and we created a Facebook page which is called Project Wharepaku, which literally means small house, not toilet. It does mean toilet, but literally it means small house. So our thing's called Project Wharepaku, and we sort of shared as much of the journey as we could. And just by having that page, it's almost like added something to my resume or something like that. Like it's like this thing that people really associate with me, and it's sort of become a part of my identity in other people's eyes. I think it's like the guy who's built the tiny house on a trailer in Hokianga, and yeah, that's given a lot of appeal, and in terms of like work opportunities, different accolades, and recognition and stuff, media coming and hitting us up about what we're doing, newspaper articles and stuff like that. It's put a lot of attention on us, and we sort of haven't really been asking for it. It's just we just wanted to share the journey to show whānau what's possible.
And in terms of your partner and having a whānau, a lot of people will say, well, that's not an easy thing. And you've said to me recently your whānau's expanded quite largely, I suppose, and that that's meant that you've had to rethink of how you live tiny.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've at the start of this year, we whangai two of my nephews, and then a month later, my son was born, our first son. So we went from a family of 2 to a family of 5 in a matter of a month, and it kind of just made our living situation unrealistic within a period of a month, and so that meant that we've had to move into a communal space with my parents-in-law, which we're really grateful for, and just to sort of open up some more of the space in our tiny house. I've built a shed and put some extra rooms in it to just accommodate whānau when needed. My nephews have actually gone back to their parents, which is great. But, you know, especially Māori, whānau, tiny house is cool, but I would love to be able to accommodate my whānau when they need it, my friends when they need it. So having some extra space has actually been something that's kind of gone against the whole minimalistic tiny house thing. We've got this kind of big shed with extra rooms, but it's allowing us to express manaakitanga and just look after people when they need it, just give them a bed when they need it and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and in terms of your upskilling and being in contact with the land, has that changed? You know, because I know that it's done it for me.
Yeah, big time. Pretty much like my, in the last 2-3 years, more and more my sort of interest and focus and energy has been going into sustainable food systems. And like I sort of see once we completely wrap up our build, it's just going to free up this huge amount of time in my life, and I want all of that time to go into the whenua, into growing kai, growing a diversity of kai, a diversity of natives, of rongoa, of, you know, of companion plants, food forests, you know, using, you know, methods like no-dig organic gardening, and yeah, and just really create a thriving, abundant example that will fully sustain us. Well, you know, my hope is that we'll be getting sort of 80-90% of what we consume from our whenua, or from locally, from trade. So it's this, the tiny house has definitely been a catalyst and something that sort of helped push me in that direction.
That's true, eh? Because that is rangatiratanga, as you said in the beginning. You know, it's not just rangatiratanga in terms of your housing. You've got your food systems, you've got your communal living, you know, mental health, physical health. The whole lot of it goes together, eh? I mean, housing is one thing, but it's one thing of part of a larger thing of oranga, eh?
Absolutely, yeah.
We're going to leave this part here, bro. Thank you very much. And we're going to switch over to Grant and have a kōrero with him. Kei te pai. And we're going to come back and talk a little bit about big picture stuff after I've had a kōrero with Grant.
Mean.
Kia ora. Kia ora, Grant.
Kia ora, waramu.
Kia pai. Man, I love this technology. Challenging, but yeah, you know. First time we've done a Zoom thing, and I can't see you right now, Grant. Yeah. I think you're coming up in a sec. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Okay, now here I am. So I didn't realize that. I was waiting for you to do everything for me.
Oh, right.
I didn't think there was something that I had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're learning fast.
That's right.
Yeah, I teach light earth building, but that is just part of the whole field of natural building, because we don't just build with clay, you know. It's so the generally accepted word around the world now, and I've got to emphasize that I'm just part of a worldwide movement. I didn't come up with all these ideas myself. It is a huge worldwide movement to recreate, you know, natural building, revive natural building methods, which really just means traditional, actually. All building was natural over 150 years ago, before cement was invented.
True that. And actually, I didn't think about this question, but, you know, whakapapa-wise, whakapapa Pākehā, back into Europe and wherever else, that's where a lot of natural building started, eh?
Well, even Māori have probably got a more recent whakapapa back to rope or huts, and I regularly meet Maori people that tell me that they grew up in a hut with a dirt floor. and some of them are even younger than me, and I'm 62, you know, so it's not just the old Kiwi in the pub that grew up in a rapa hut with a dirt floor. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, my grandparents actually had a raupo, I mean, not a raupo, but a earth floor kota, so outside kota, you know, made
Yeah.
out of tin and whatever
Yeah,
else,
no.
and railway irons, so that's what I grew up
Yeah. So
knowing.
I couldn't help think when I was listening to Jared that really my world is really on another planet to what he's doing, you know.
Tell us about
it's
how
all
did
good.
you get into the natural building thing in the beginnings?
The beginnings
Yeah.
really began with building wood-fired earth ovens, or what was called pizza ovens. I try not to use that word, pizza ovens. We're not really just into cooking pizzas, but once you just start playing with the clay, that is the introductory ground level, small scale, ground level project, is building an earth oven. And I've literally done, 300 or 400 or more. I've lost count. But so once you just start playing with the clay, you want to build with it. You just realize what a wonderful material it is. And but there was a community max scheme in Moira about almost 12 years ago, and there was a big team of guys on a community max project. They asked me, we need a smoko shed grown, and I said, well, I've got an idea. Why don't we just line some manuka poles up in the ground, weave some bamboo, and then throw mud at it and see what happens. And it ended up being this quite amazing building, but it was just, there's no plan, just let's make a small smoko shed, but it turned into this amazing earth building. And just opportunities. Yeah, I don't control my destiny. My destiny just happens to me. And, yeah, so it really, and so one thing leads to another. Yeah.
One thing led to another, and you ended up on the East Coast. I mean, I think that's when I first came to know of your work, was on the East Coast, through Facebook, actually.
Yeah, that was karmic, I just lost my job. The funding got slashed for North Tech for the courses, so me and a lot of my colleagues lost their jobs, and then suddenly I get a phone call from Tina Nata and said, can you come down to Tokomaru Bay to do a workshop? And then I ended up meeting Pānapa had also wanted to meet up with me, and then next minute I'm on my way down to the East Coast to share a teaching job with Pānapa Iho.
Oh yeah. You've done. I mean, I've seen the courses and I've seen the people. I don't, as just seeing the pictures and the hands-on work and the joy I see of it. The joy of working together. Even though it looks like damn hard work, I imagine that it's changed a lot of people's thinking. Coming from a small town like Ruatoria. What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, you've hit the nail on the head. To use a building metaphor, yeah, it really has impacted people's imagination. They suddenly start seeing things. They see a future. They see a future for themselves. You call it hard work. Well, it's really a lot of fun. When we're just doing small scale projects like 10 square meter huts and umus and all this, and we've got a big gang of workers, sometimes up to 18 people working. It's a lot of fun, but as you're well aware, I think the only future for earth building in general actually is to mechanize. It's not about jumping in the mud. We have to utilize machinery, but it's really my job is just to plant seeds in people's minds. I've done 10 or more huts. I've done literally 300 or 400 or more ovens. I've done gardens. I do raised bed gardens. I do done a few fireplaces, stoves, and all this kind of thing, but it's never materialized in the form of a beautiful earth-built house. You know, it's not that's coming. I think that's going to be in our near future.
As you say, it's planting the seeds, but it's also instilling skills, eh? And these people are getting the skills.
Yeah, no,
Planting the seeds.
You got to start with
the imagination.
You start small scale. You don't want to launch into a big project. With the hut, the light earth hut, the first hut we built at Ruatoria at the Kaiwai homestead, I made a bad mistake with the finishing plaster, and it turned into plaster hell for me. And if I'd done that on a big house, it would have been horrific to fix the problem. And so, you know, if you want to make them, you know, I'm making the mistakes for everybody so that when they launch into a bigger project, they're not gonna go through that steep learning curve that I've been through.
I think that mistakes things is a really important part of the process. That's been my journey as well. Make mistakes, learn from it, don't do it again.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can't just hand it to somebody on a platter and say we've got it all worked out. You know, it's not painting by numbers. It's not painting by numbers. It's the whole field of earth building, light earth building, natural building is an evolving. It's a work. It's still a work in progress. So I don't want to kid anybody, and you know, we're still learning.
Talking about not painting with numbers, I mean, what do you look for if you're going on to land? You know, if you're looking for, is this suitable for an earth house or is it not? What sort of things are you looking for when you go on to land?
The first thing I'm looking for is where the sun's coming from. Earth buildings do well in the shade of a hill. They don't do well in damp areas, which turn into swamps in winter, or you don't want water, streams running around your building in the middle of winter because you didn't realize that's where the stream flowed. And you don't want to build on top of a hill. Then you get horizontal rain hitting your wall and washing out your beautiful earth plasters. They can't withstand fierce horizontal rain. So it's but I think it's really good to get the passive solar going. Thermal mass is strong on something called thermal mass. When you get passive solar onto thermal mass, your heating bill is very low.
You're talking about thermal mass in terms of a large walls, aren't you?
Yeah, that's when you talk about the advantages of earth building. Well, you've got thermal mass. You can do really thick walls where you've got the sun coming in, and on the north side of the house, you really can make your walls quite massive, and they become heat batteries. Battery that'll hold on to the heat from the sun during the day and then radiate that out at night. So you're creating these batteries of warmth inside your house, and so that's one of the advantages of earth. Combined with sand and natural fibers, it'll load up with that beautiful warmth that radiates out at night.
Is it like, going back to going on to land, I remember you talking about, I think it was a pampas or something
that's a bamboo. That's a fine stem bamboo for our slats. That's tiara. Yeah, we're very lucky to find that. There's not much bamboo around the East Coast. We need to start bamboo nurseries on the East Coast.
Bamboo and hemp. I think bamboo and hemp are good. What do you call it? Holders of carbon, eh?
Yeah,
I think they could save the world.
As I was saying to Lisa Beach, we're a few years away from getting a hemp processing plant up and running on the East Coast, but we've got pampas grass, cutty grass is growing all along the banks of the Waipu River now. It's a highly noxious weed that really is out of control, and we've had very good results in using that as our natural fiber in our light earth mixes.
And so, like going onto land and looking at land, are you looking at the resources on the land at that present time and saying, well, we can do this because we have got that. We've got pine trees there.
Yeah, definitely. That's the first. after checking out where the sun comes from and whether it's going to turn into a swamp in winter, you're looking at how many old man pines, 90-year-old man pines at Awatiri there. What's the clay? Where's the clay? What are the natural fibers? All these things. That's definitely, after sussing out whether the land's suitable, you look at the resources on it. Yeah.
The resources, and then being able to use those resources. I imagine that you would, have different types of machinery, and I know that you have a portable sawmill.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind one of those, but I don't think I could use it here where I live. But taking that sawmill into places like Ruatori, I imagine it'd be really invaluable.
Oh, it is. Guys come up to me in the street and saying, "When are you milling again, Grant? I want to come along and help." They love it. It's like their dream job, people have problems with pines. I love pines because I love chopping them down and turning them into beautiful timber so that people can build affordable housing. We've got the wall of wood coming up where harvestable areas of pine are about to double in the next few years in New Zealand. I don't know whether you've heard that one, the wall of wood.
No.
And we happen to make some of the best portable sawmills in the world. The Peterson, sometimes I sound like a salesman for the Peterson, but because I've got one myself. But there's Mahoe just across the road. My landlord invented the Mahoe mill. The Mahoe mill's made across the road. Down at Blenheim, you can get the Rimu, and in Australia there's the Lucas. So there's plenty of really good mills, But one of the reasons I do like the Peterson is because it's in Rotorua, half the staff at the Peterson factory are Māori and genuinely interested. They're not just want to make money out of you, they're genuinely interested in seeing their mills working in rural Māori communities.
And
I put an advert into Peterson there.
But that is that is key, because I imagine the earth building, and I've built a pizza oven with some friends, but that's about as far as I've gone, and I've done a little bit of some workshops and stuff. But I imagine that the tools and machinery are a big thing. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about the types of tools that you use? What would you be using if you were to do, say, a small hut? What would be the most important tools?
Well, if you're doing it with a small hut, you can use your tarpaulin and your gumboots to mush up the clay. But so a small scale project you can do just manually, but it's quite the problem with earth building is you have to break up the clay lumps. And that can be very difficult at times to break up clay lumps. And that's where simple machinery, just like a walk-behind rotary hoe, can have huge benefits. I want to utilize machinery which is commonly available on farms, front-end loaders, rotary hoes, slashers. All those tools can make the job go 100 times faster for us. The cost of our materials, our raw materials, is very low, but things are a bit slow and labor intensive, and we can deal with that problem by utilizing available machinery, commonly available machinery, concrete mixers.
I think I saw something hooked to a car. It looked a little bit.
That's probably the most critical piece of kit that you can buy or make. Is a blender, a big drum with like a lawnmower. It's like an oversized kitchen blender, and then we get some old vehicles that have been taken off the road, but the engine's still going good, and we connect it to a drive shaft into a gearbox, and away we go. Getting all those lumps, creating that beautiful clay cream for our light earth mixers.
Yeah.
Our natural fibers, as you're seeing in the photos here, that's clay that's been slurried. I didn't include a picture of that blender. I should have, because that's probably the most critical piece of kit that you need is to get you can do with plasterers, drills and things like this, but that's much slower.
Yeah.
Beautiful light earth blocks. You know, that's that's what I've pioneered in New Zealand, is the use of blocks in light earth.
Is that because it makes it easier to place them and easier to get them up?
Yeah, well, people usually say, well, why are you double handling, Grant? Why don't you just put your mixtures straight into between the slats and or between the shutters? And but it's actually way faster. It's counterintuitive, but it actually is way faster to make blocks for a lot of reasons. There's a couple of downsides to light earth building. One is waiting for the walls to dry. By pre-drying our blocks out in the field, we greatly reduced the drying time. The other downside is that the walls can, as they dry out, they move and they shrink and they develop cracks, and so that makes the plastering quite challenging. But by pre-drying our blocks, the movement and cracking in the wall is very minimal. Yeah. So in there you can see some slumping. You see where the light's coming in at the top of the wall that those ladies are plastering? Well, that wall was not done with blocks. That was done by just stuffing the mixture between the bamboo slats, the bamboo from that clump that we saw earlier, that fine stem bamboo. So and then later on in this hut build, we changed over to blocks, and went a lot faster.
The plastering there, is it?
Beautiful, yeah. That's where you slow up, attention to detail, get your mixes right. The plastering is another critical aspect, because that's the interface between the elements and the materials in the wall, which are very perishable, degradable, you know, can rot and all that. And so the secret to this building method is everything must stay bone dry, and if it stays bone dry, then it's around in 100 years' time.
Right, and I see that you've got a large veranda there, and that's to keep rain off and got a good slope on it.
Yeah, and we're into sort of semi-outdoor living, semi-outdoor kitchens or kautas, or whatever you want to call them. You know, we're into courtyards, patios, verandas, you can't. That works brilliantly for earth building, because it keeps the rain off your walls and virtually eliminates that danger of moisture getting in there and causing rot.
How much would it have cost for this this building here? Because I can see secondhand ranch slider, probably windows, and
all those were free. They're all just demolition materials that were, I think, given to Nolene. That building is 16 square meters. It's a decent size. It's 10 square meters is a pain, really, because it's only small. It's so small. It's only suitable for a sleep out. You can't. It's very hard to live in 10 square meters. Believe me, I've tried. Alice and I gave up and went back into we moved into a tin shed. Instead, that was more comfortable than living in a small little 10 square meter earth hut. So
is that because of council regulation?
But you asked me how much that costs, and my God, it would only. It's a beautiful building, and I'd say I think Nolene said she only spent about 1,200. 1,200, and really that is unbelievably cheap. But I milled all the timber. She got the demolition materials from. That were lying around, or given to her by friends. There's a bit of cement for the floor. I think there might have been $900 for the new corrugated iron on the roof. So
you want to have a good roof, eh?
Unbelievably cheap. Sorry?
Want to have a good roof.
Yeah, a good hat and a good pair of boots. Good foundation and good roof. I could have put a picture where all that ground that you're looking at now was about 6 inches deep in water. We had a torrential downpour, and all that ground was flooded, and it was flowing around. The hut looked like it was some kind of boat on the sea.
Oh, God.
We've done a very good foundation on it, so it was not a problem at all.
So does the foundation very, very solid, and you can't get water in?
No, we did drainage. it's called a rubble trench. We
I
dug a deep trench all around the outside of the whare and put big rocks in. That's our rather primitive form of drainage.
And in that first picture, we saw a whole lot of bottles going down into the floor. What's that for?
Yeah. Well, we like to work with abundant local resources, and especially at Ruatoria, you can get truckloads of Steinlager bottles for nothing. It's actually very dangerous to say that you want some Steinlager bottles, because they don't turn up with a few boxes of them. They come along with trailer loads and dump them on your front lawn.
That's another environmental issue. But
I love drinking out of a stubby, but I think stubbies are an incredible waste of glass. I'd rather go back to the big brown box and bring big brown bottles in the wooden crates. The ABC,
I think that's another webinar.
The ABC crates, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring back recycling.
Okay, we're going to wind this part up, and I'm just going to come back to all three of us and just have a little discussion about the opportunities that these sort of buildings, this sort of living and upskilling can have for all of us. So bringing you back in, Jared, really interesting kōrero, and a lot of similarities in terms of, I suppose, the empowerment of people, the feeling that you get of being able to do something for yourself, not relying on having to go for a mortgage or having to go through a system that perhaps doesn't serve us or serve anybody really, except banks and corporations and things like that. And I could rave about that forever. But firstly, for you, Jared, talking about rangatiratanga and Māori in particular, and we've still got land, papakainga, multiply owned land. What do you think the opportunities are for Māori in terms of housing? And you've heard the kōrero with Grant, and really rethinking about how we could be going into or reoccupying our land. And what's your thoughts about that, Derek?
Yeah, well, as you say, there is a lot of Māori land that is available or could be made available for papakainga, for people to live on. It's there, it's waiting. There can be some politics, some dynamics and personalities to navigate to actually get to the point of building on that land, but it is such a huge opportunity, and it's something that can really transform people's lives in the way of not having to front up the costs of buying land, in the way of being able to live on the whenua that their ancestors guarded for many centuries. The connection back to whakapapa that comes with that is powerful, and I think the hard thing is that we're so locked into a certain way of life now, hugely based around chasing materials, consumerism, and just trying to chase that dream of owning a big home. And in order to own that big home, you need to live in a city, because that's where you're able to make money. And so there's all these sort of systems and just things going on that are keeping us kind of pinned down to that dream, which is actually putting us further away from going back to our kainga, and it's putting our children and our mokopunas further away from growing up on the land that their toto comes from. So I think there's a need to open our minds and open up, just be open to kind of shifting what it is that we're after in our life. Is it that we're after a beautiful big house in a populated city with a nice car, with all these things which are great? We all love those things, and it's nice and comfy to be able to have those things. But there's just a lot of fulfillment that we're missing out on. So I think it's just about people moving past those desires and really tuning into and just being critical of what they're after in their life. What are we living for? What are we chasing? And
it kind of reminds me, like, of our values as Māori. We talk about whanaungatanga, we talk about aroha ki te tangata, we talk about manaakitanga, and all these base values of who we are as Māori, and then it's how are we embodying that, how are we actually living that in our lives. And that's the challenge, isn't it? It's like, do these things that we might acquire, do these houses, cars, whatever else that we might buy and have in our lives, do they fulfill that? And if not, then are we shortchanging ourselves in our lives? That's what you're talking about, eh?
Yeah, definitely. And it's like I definitely don't want to make anyone feel bad about living that kind of life. The majority of people in the developed world are in that, and it doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilled life if that's what you're doing. That's fine. You go for it. Do that, and if that's what you want. But just be critical of what you're chasing, and don't just sort of just accept what's being given to you or what everyone else is going for. Really be conscious of what it is you want. Do you want to raise your kids having skills like growing their own kai, or growing up with te reo Māori, or being familiar with the hills and the maunga that your tupuna walked on, or is your intention more to just build a solid base in whatever way you can, and whether that's in a city. And I think I'm not here to judge anyone for which path you choose, but I think it's just there's some realities that we need to face up to, that humanity needs to face up to when we look at climate change and environmental degradation and all those things. That system that we're part of, that we're born into, we're participating members of that, and just by being born into that, we are contributing to the degradation of papa tuanuku, of rangi nui, of our environment. And so I think that going back to your papa kāinga can offer a way for us to unplug from a lot of those systems that are keeping us hurting our whenua. And it's I guess it's what I'm talking about. It does take a lot of resource. It takes a bit of confidence and it takes it takes a real drive within a person and their whānau to actually start that move and start creating intentions to go home. If you don't have the resources, the skills, the financial base to be able to make that move, if you don't have whānau who can house you while you create that vision, then it is hard. I come from Waimana. We don't have a home there. Like I got my uncles and my aunties have built homes and stuff, and that's great on our papa kāinga. But me, my mum, my family, we don't have a home there. So my sister, she's got 9 kids. It's like, what's she gonna do when she wants to go home? You can't just go and rock up to aunties and be like, Auntie, can me and my 9 kids come and stay for a week? So having a home in your kāinga is a really empowering thing, and it actually it enables you to go home. You can go home, but if you don't have that whare, you can't really get home and stay home for a while. And so you can't put those waiwai. You can't make them two on the whenua for a long time. But I think that it's just about if that's what you're longing for, just just like look at how you can create that. You don't have to have $20,000 sitting right in front of you, as Grant's talked about. Like that building that lady built with $1,200, you know, and you don't have to have all that money right away. You can build that up over time. You can buy some materials now and buy some more later, but I think it's just got to start making moves towards that, and be a bit, you know, just be a bit, just fearless or whatever it is.
Yeah. What's your thoughts, Grant?
Well, it did only cost $1,200 for the materials, but of course there was a huge number of people that gave free labour. So if we put the labour in, you know, it's not $1,200 hut, you know, but it's really just about bringing people together. I mean, one of the questions you wanted me to answer is how does it's raining very heavily outside at the moment. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Down out there. You know, asked me, well, how does this work for whānau? And the short answer is brilliantly, you know, because everyone's got a role. Everyone's got a role to play. And, you know, there's such a broad range of skills, you know, and you know, you've got young fellas that are big and strong and can be on the concrete mixer all day. There's old nannies that just love to take care of the kids to free up the working age people, and so it can work for somebody that's 70 years old. A 70 years old woman can work with a 7 years old boy. You know, so it's actually very you know, tiny homes often require quite advanced carpentry skills, not mud huts. Anybody who's never done it before in their life can jump in and start working. Yeah, so it works very well for whānaus because everyone's got a role to play. You know, no one has got any excuses to do nothing, but that's people power.
Yeah, people power, and it sounds to me like whanaungatanga in action, really, because you're just creating whānau, eh?
Yeah, well,
everybody's got a role.
You know, I put a lot of time into Facebook because that's how I do my whakawhanaungatanga. Is that word? Is it a word about that long? Is it whakawhanaungatanga? Yeah. So I never used to do Facebook, but when I went down to Ruatoria, you know, Lisa and Rob said, Grant, you've got to do Facebook. And I said, no, you guys do that for me. I don't want to do it. And they said, we can't. You got to do it. And so really that just started the revolution, actually, me going on Facebook, the natural building revolution, because I just got to thousands of people. I got to solo mums living in Grassmere and got to the grassroots.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think that's what this sort of building, this sort of way of thinking is so empowering for those people who perhaps think that that they have no power. But you know, as you say, Jared, the communing and the talking with each other and the, you know, looking at what the possibilities are is really important. And if we can share the information that we have with each other, then perhaps we can empower others to take those similar pathways, eh? So, like, I really appreciate the kōrero that we've had today. It's been really interesting. I think that it's going to be very useful as a tool for people to just, you know, perhaps think about why and how they can be going into affordable housing. I mean, there's a whole lot of other options that we haven't covered, you know, but this is a start. And when you were talking about you know, people in the city, and that there are also options there where people can group together. You know, even if you are living in state houses, well, why not put a street together? You know, share power, share gardens, and start to share resources so that perhaps we're not living so individually and going on journeys of being supportive of each other. And with that support and that whanaungatanga, we have much healthier people. So any last thoughts before we sign off? Because we're coming up to the end of our webinar, and yeah, really appreciate you guys taking the time out to contribute. So last thoughts from you, Jared?
Yeah, I guess just building off what you just mentioned, Wuramu, and what Grant was tapping into about, you know, people coming together, about the help, the whakawhanaungatanga, the labour force that comes with these kinds of projects and stuff. And I can definitely say that in our experience, people have just really got behind us, been really willing to help us. We've had people sort of hitting us up, wanting to, you know, hey, come give your hand, and we don't even know these people. And there's been times where I've been stuck not knowing what to do, and I might just find someone on Facebook who, you know, a tiny house community or whatever, and I just hit them up, and then 1 month later I'm in their workshop and they're just giving me advice. So I think people are really willing to support, and they're really open. And you know, it's tough, man. Like, you know, life is tough, and we to do it on your own and to just try and keep it so insulated and just look after yourselves. It's you know, it's hard. And I think the more we can come together, the easier life will get. The more we can do, the more abundant we can make our lives. And yeah, so I guess it's just, there's just navigating the trickiness of living with other people who aren't your immediate whānau or whatever, you know. But we just got to be a little, just a bit more understanding and have more empathy and aroha to be able to work through those things. I think, you know, that's something that I hope to do, and is yeah, live together with others to just for a greater cause. So yeah, thank you Wuramu, tēnā rawa atu koe koutou, ko tamaki te whakarono. Yeah, ngā mihi nui kia tātou katoa.
Kia ora, my bro. Grant, any last thoughts?
Yeah. I don't talk about doom and gloom too much. You know, I'd rather inspire people through the beauty and fun that we have through doing natural building. You know, but you know, really being in the city is all about the money. And you know, if the money disappears, then you're going back to the land whether you like it or not. And so you know, I am a believer in economic collapse happening in the near future. So really, that, you know, so it's I commonly tell people your only future is to go back to the land, build a house, grow your own food, whatever way you can, you know. So yeah, I think we're heading into very, very hard times due to climate chaos or global warming or whatever you want to call it. Also, American fracking has created a huge head fake about the future of fossil fuels. American fracking is totally uneconomic, and that's kept the price of energy down. But you know, it could, you know, that's going to come to an end, and then we're into an energy crisis, and then the whole housing bubble. The whole world economy at the moment is based on a huge mountain of debt, and that huge amount of debt is also a house of cards that's about to collapse on top of us. So yeah, so you know, I don't, you know, people are going to have to go back to the land whether they like it or not, and I actually think they'll love it. But yeah, it's going to be a steep.
I think it's kind of, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I know.
I don't normally go on about doom and gloom because I'm a positive, scary kind of guy that just loves to get out there and build beautiful things, you know. But that's the background to what I'm doing. Is that I see immense suffering descending upon us in the near future, and so yeah, so that's it could get very tragic. It could get very tragic. So to end on that positive note.
No, Grant, I was just thinking that you know, it's important to acknowledge some of the crisis that are pending, and you know, just to bring them to the front of our conversation. So you know, I appreciate that you're someone who will bring those types of topics to a forum like this, and I think you know, it's necessary, it's important, you know, because we, like you say, there is the possibility of things falling to pieces. And yeah, and I guess sort of my approach to that, and with the economic side of things, is that in my life I want to make money as redundant as possible in my world, so that I'm not chasing it. If it does fall over, I won't be affected so much. And the way that you do that is, you know, mortgage free, grow your own kai. Just bring down all your off grid, whatever. Bring down your costs, so that your time is spent on you know, doing things you love rather than doing things to make money. Yeah.
True that, and what a lovely way to finish. In that, you know, thinking about the possibilities of what we can bring to the world if we weren't having to concentrate on trying to make money, you know, in the system that actually doesn't serve us. And I'm very grateful that we are, you know, talking about and upskilling ourselves, because through that and through sharing that with others, you know, we can actually be front-footed, at least, you know, for ourselves and for our whānau and for those around us who actually want to do something on the ground to have a safer future for the next generation. Because, you know, I think of those things as well, the possibilities of economic and, you know, food systems collapsing. And I want my mokos to have a safe place. So that's another driver for me, you know, another driver for me and for those who I talk to. Same sort of thing, you know, we want to be having safe place for our mokos, and we want to have well-being in our families and with ourselves. So I think we'll end on that note, and thank you very much to you two again. Ngā mihi kia korua, both of you in the north, far north, that's right, eh? Yeah.
Yep, I'm in Bay Islands.
Bay Islands, and you're in Hokianga, eh, Jared?
Yeah.
Jared, so ngā mihi ki te tai toke rau, mai konei ki Porirua. Nō reira tēnā koutou, mai te upoko tika ka mihi atu ki te hiku o tika i tēnei rā, nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā hui tātou katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Kia ora. Oh, yes.
Theme.
The last thing I'm going to say is that we've got a Kaupapa Village Hui. Kaupapa Māori Eco Village Hui, exploring resilient Māori models of community, coming up in April in Porirua. And that we have been sponsored by Namaste Foundation.